come for a visit now. Good evening, everybody. And if you're just tuning in, you are listening to the Angel Rock live on 105.3 and United Public Radio Network, broadcast to you out of New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. If you've never been to the show before, welcome. And if you're returning, we love having you here and we love your support. My show, I say, feature all aspects of the esoteric, the spiritual, the paranormal, with a little bit of truth-seeking thrown in. But we always try and end on a positive note. And I have people as guests on my show that come from all walks of life, and whether what they're doing professionally or personally or both, they're making a positive change for humanity. And tonight, that is no different with my guest here. I'm going to read her bio. Boy, has she got a bio. Her name is Heidi Hollis, and she put OTR. I know what that is. I should also tell you before I read your bio what I do, shouldn't I? I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium, a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, and also a registered nurse. That's why I know our guests when I say OTR, occupational therapists, and we love occupational therapists.
Yes.
Both personally and professionally. I have a son with severe autism. So Heidi is known for having named, defined, and trademarked two otherworldly realities, shadow people and Hat Man. These phenomena expose a peculiar bridge between ufology and the paranormal world that Heidi has been speaking on for years, and that is true. Before I continue with her bio, I just realized I told Heidi this, but not you guys. Just to remind you, if I all of a sudden disappear, my phone it's possessed. So Heidi knows that I'll be right back. It may just reset. It's only done this once, but I always let people know just in case. Back to Heidi's bio here. With her book, Heidi Hollis embarked on a unique journey to find answers that led her to inform the world as told in The Secret War, a true story about a real alien war and shadow people. Heidi has written several other chart-topping books on a variety of phenomena touching on cryptozoology to holy encounters like the Hat Man, Jesus is No Joke, Picture Prayers, and others. And I love that she gears some of her books towards kids. I really do, because kids need somewhere to go with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Heidi is also the host of Dark Becomes Light on the #1 iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM Paranormal Podcast Network. Anyone who has experienced something out of the ordinary now has a place where they can share their experiences and get some direct insight from shadow people to Hat Man and aliens to angels. Heidi Hollis is here to help. She's also been featured, I have to add this, Heidi, globally on various television and radio programs like Strange Evidence, Beyond Belief with George Norrie, The Unexplained Files. Where are we going with this? The Mystery Hunters. Come on, don't do this to me. My computer decided to act up. Where was I here? Sorry. And a host for the CW for Mysteries Decoded in 2022. Her popular paranormal webcomic, The Outlanders, and it's hilarious. It really is. Can be enjoyed. And she's listed the Instagram profile. I always give people, as most people know, and Heidi has been on my show before, but at the end of the show. And she has received thousands of stories and shares some of them in her blog, The Hat Man Letters. Welcome, Heidi. Holy cow, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's a pleasure to be chatting with you again. We used to chat all the time.
I know.
For a while. Yeah.
I have not talked to anybody. And the reason why is I got really sick in April with some weird respiratory bug for about 8 weeks. And then I got so used to not talking to people. And I haven't even told you this. I am creating all kinds of products with resin. So I'm about to launch my store. I'm pretty sure I'm going to put it on Etsy, but I have a spiritual kind of paranormal type line that's got anything from they look like crystals, to organite, to runes, to pendulums. I even have a few Ouija boards, believe it or not.
Oh boy.
Yes, but I also, not many. And I have crystal charging plates, crystal grids with hand painted. They've got like Metatron's cube, to
Wow.
chessboards, you name it. So that's what I've been busy doing every spare moment. So
You're
so
so
nobody can
creative.
talk
I'm
to me.
not surprised.
Yeah, you've seen some of my products. Well, you're creative. Like I don't go to people's profiles, but it'll come up in my feed. Like your comic
Yeah.
is hilarious.
The human Heidi, that is all I ever wanted to do, is to be a comic strip artist,
I could
and
see
I did
why.
it for several newspapers, and it's my heart,
Yeah.
and it's come in handy, reaching out to children that are dealing with these odd things,
Mm-hmm.
and made some books that are addressing these paranormal things, and yeah, I mean, I'm having a good time. I mean, I figure if I've got to try to open up some eyeballs on these things, I might as well go at every angle I can, and the art to the art and the comics, it's really helped.
Well, yeah. Here, let me change our background. My God, I'm really unprepared, and I'm going to tell you guys why. It is Canadian Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving. I keep
Happy
saying, why don't we
Thanksgiving to
just
you.
have it at the same time as you guys? I swear. Because you know what? We still have like or what is it, Black Friday. And you know what?
Yeah.
Why don't we just do it? I know the history behind it, but really, like, we're doing it anyways. So why not just, we might as well just do it. And then we're doing it at the same time, right?
I mean, we were kind of united at one point, kind of, weren't we? Like really similar histories. Like, why not
Yes.
link it?
I think we should, like, some of the things that, and it's been Delva informed me of this, but I think, well, centuries ago, part of Canada that we used to own, some of the northern states, I think, are part of what used to be Canada is now the US. And as Joe Montaldo, who owns a network, give him a shout out. Thanks, Joe, for giving me this wonderful platform and the rest of the hosts on this network to be able to bring these shows. He always says that we're your little brothers and sisters, that you guys have, what do you say, annexed the Canadians.
All that French stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Well, hey, I speak some French. Well, I
Cool.
met somebody last week. I was on the show afterwards, the Horsefly Chronicles, that are on right after Julia and Phil. And I guess they had a last minute cancellation. So they said, hey, you want to hang out with us? And I said, hey, great. Yeah, sure. No problem. I said, what are we going to talk about? And Julia said, well, I'd never seen your Paranormal Survivor episode. She said, wow. And I said, well, do you want to talk paranormal? And she said, well, let's just get caught up. I have no idea how the conversation steered there. We started talking about UFOs and aliens and abductions and just crazy stuff. But there was somebody from Austria that had never, I think, seen me. I don't know if he must have probably been a fan of the Horsefly Chronicles. So
Yeah.
he shot me a couple messages over the week, and he said, today, even we celebrate Thanksgiving, but we don't do it like you guys do.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you guys, Thanksgiving is huge, isn't it?
It's huge. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's one of
Yeah.
the
Like
big
bigger,
great holidays.
yeah,
Hmm.
like almost bigger than Christmas, I find. Like it's like the kickoff to your Christmas season, right?
Well, I mean, pretty much like they put up the Halloween decoration stuff in the stores, and like a week later is Christmas. I
We
mean,
have it here already, Christmas.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
nuts. It's like it's throwing it in your face, and it's like, coming from Wisconsin, knowing how miserably cold it gets and nobody wanting to
Ooh,
go
I know.
outdoors,
Hmm.
I see why they're planning ahead, because man, we don't want to go out when it's brutal like that. you know?
Oh, yeah, Wisconsin. Well, I'm not that far away from Wisconsin, actually.
Yeah.
I'm in Minnesota, but when I get to Duluth, which is about 3.5 hours away, not Duluth,
Oh,
Georgia, Duluth, Minnesota, you go
okay.
over the bridge and you're in Superior, Wisconsin. Like
Oh,
literally 2 minutes and you're in another state.
well, we're gonna go and meet and high five each other at least, okay?
Finally, because how many years have we been friends? Like how many networks ago? Like we've been friends for a long time and we've never met in
Yeah.
person yet.
Yes.
Uh, so let me know, what have you been up to? Like every time I talk to Heidi, like off air, holy cow, I'm getting goosebumps. It's not cold. Already thinking of some of the things I'm sure she's gonna. I know
Man.
you'll share what you want to share, so I'm just gonna leave it up to you.
Yeah, the spooky stuff. I mean, my life is all spooky, and it's like I
Mm-hmm.
have 8 books out there, and you can see the most popular one right there, The Hat Man. And it's like I write books on so many different topics, and
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 that are on The Hat Man and Shadow People, and that's all people really care to talk about. They're just like, let's dig on
Yes.
it, let's get in there. And it's like, I love talking about all of it, but it's all connected. It's so
Yeah, you
funny
can't
how
separate it. I just
you
said that
can't.
to somebody. You can't separate these things.
No,
Like it just all
no.
goes together, right?
You can't. As somebody more recently told me, like, Heidi, did you know there's a researcher out there who discovered shadow people are related to aliens? I'm like, yeah,
Hello.
yeah, the name is called Heidi Hollis because my
Yeah.
first book comes at the whole phenomena from aliens perspective, for crying out loud. It's like, what are you talking about? That is not new. But it's funny. I can't help but to wonder, why was it so difficult to give a lady of my stature, whatever, a credit for having done this? It's so hard for them. No, it's
Hmm.
gotta be a guy. It's
Hmm.
gotta be of a different stature, it doesn't make sense. I'm like, what's so hard about that? I don't get it. It's like, I've been doing this for since '97.
Ever. Yes. No, it's
1997.
been a long time.
Oh, a guy grabbed it and put his name on it. Now it's his, and he's discovered. No, dude, no, that's the late show. That's way late. I had a group called UFO, the number two and letter U.com. So UFO2U.com. I had a UFO group for over 15 years, and I
Oh,
spoke
yeah.
these things from the alien perspective. I had one of the more popular UFO websites out there back in the day when they used to vote who's the top. I was always in the top 10.
Hmm.
It's like I had hundreds of stuff coming in of messages and whatnot. I put shadow people up, I put Hat Man up, and it's so funny when I did that. Like I put the shadow people images up, and my emails slowly turned from all aliens to shadow people. And then I put up the image of Hat Man, and it's almost all of the emails has or involves Hat Man in some capacity. And
Okay,
I'm
I'm
like,
going to stop you for one sec there because I know the difference. But for our listeners, and I want to remind you if you're listening, come on over to UFO Paranormal Radio. We go by United Public Radio Network or UFO Paranormal Radio Network, but our YouTube channel and our Facebook page are there because I like to involve the audience in part of the conversation. And I'd love to see your comments, but I can't see them anywhere else. So if you go there, you can watch us and you can join in the conversation. Sorry, Heidi, because I want to ask for
okay,
people listening. I know the difference, but there are people that don't. What's the difference
right,
between shadow people or shadow man and hat man
yeah.
for people?
Yeah, well, I want to make sure too. Can you hear me clearly? Is it loud enough, the
I
mic?
can. Am I loud enough for you? Because I can
Oh,
hear
yeah,
you perfectly.
very much so. Okay, cool. Well, shadow people are these dark entities that can shapeshift to become all sorts of shapes and sizes. It could look like a black giant moth went by your face or something in your room, or it could be a big hulking mass that has a loose shape, kind of looking like a person, but no distinction, no like hair, no fingers, nothing of you won't see the clothing, nothing like that. And if you
Hmm.
get a sometimes they'll reveal they have glowing red eyes, slanted usually, and they growl, they might whisper, but they
Hmm.
don't go, "Hey, how's it going?" They don't do that, They don't look kinda like, that's a guy right there standing. No, shadow beings shapeshift. It could look like a cat, a
Hmm.
cloud, a streak,
A
head
mist.
a mist, a head and
Hmm.
shoulder shadow.
Hmm.
It kinda looks like a guy with his head directly connected to its shoulders, but the rest is kind of a hulking mass. It could look misty for the where you would think you'd see legs, or the arms look like they're connected to the body or something.
Hmm.
I get people say, "The little girl shadow people." No, 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 that's not
Mm-mm.
shadow. That's not shadow people. People are out there distorting years of work, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," Well, so one of the reasons why I trademarked it is because people were distorting and grabbing and saying, "I came up with this. What are you talking about, a lady?" Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
always known you
Mhm.
as the person that had that you were the one that named them. And like we had I would call him a hat guy. I'll let you first say what a hat guy is, but I'm
Yes.
positive it was a hat guy. But go
Yes.
ahead. Hmm.
So, when it comes to, the Hat Man, when I first introduced him, I
Sorry,
called
hat
him
man.
the the Hat Man shadow. I
Yeah.
did. I thought he was another form that shadow people took, but as the emails kept coming in, oh no way. No.
Mhm.
This thing, cuz I did not see him myself. My
I
college
have.
my college well no, at this
Mhm.
time. My
Okay.
college roommate had seen him, and I categorized him as a shadow being, another form they could take. Wow, they could look awfully human, but then, yeah, he could look kind of like a something that's sitting in the shadows, but you'll see that distinctive hat.
And the
But
slicker or long overcoat.
you'll see a coat, you'll see a trench coat, a cape. Sometimes he doesn't wear a hat,
Mhm.
and but you'll just get this, it's a certain feel, certain vibe. But he can step out of the shadows and he can talk to you. He will say, how's it going? Whatever it is, and horrific things to people. So he can appear as a shadow, but you'll see there's a suit. You'll see there's like some
Mhm.
kind of something, even if he's not wearing his hat. So that's not a shadow person. That is Hat Man, whether he's got that hat on or not.
We
Um,
had a hat man, remember? Well, you know our story, but
yeah,
we had four main beings. But yeah, we had hat man. I called him hat guy or hat dude or
yeah.
whatever. But yeah, he wasn't the worst. He was number three, I would say. Then we had a shape shifting female, and then my family, the boys all named it from Super Mario. If you play video games, and you know the little shy guy that
Yeah.
looks like he's wearing a Jason mask and then the Grim Reaper cloak. Well, we have one, had one that
Mhm.
looked just like that. So that's what they named him, the shy guy. But he
Yeah.
wasn't. He wasn't shy.
No. And people will also think that that's a shadow being, and that
Mm-mm.
thing is a alien. It's an alien. It's short.
Ooh.
It's wearing a hood. It's like it's crazy, but there's this pattern of that thing showing up. But being that aliens are seen right alongside of shadow people, it's not surprising that
Plus, most
you know.
people, and I've been doing this, I'm getting very excited about this conversation because I
That's
know you
okay.
know what I'm talking about. Because most people, and I've been kind of doing this personal poll, I find so many people that have had paranormal experiences have also had UFO or
Mhm.
abduction stories or missing time. And the reason
Right.
why I know you're correct is because in my old house, I knew a medium at the time. I was just kind of coming into my own gifts, and she was doing some readings. So I booked a reading with her, and I'd known her well enough and for a long time. And I have the recording of it still. And she kept saying, there's some kind of crystal like that was buried very deep in the ground below your house. She goes, I keep hearing like something off of Star Trek, like this like alien type language. And she's going, I think this is alien, like ET. And I'm thinking, okay, like
Yeah.
really polite, kind. And I get off the phone, thank her, and I'm thinking, oh my God, has she lost her mind? And then I went, there's no way that woman has lost her mind. I would, if she gave me lottery numbers, I would go out and get a ticket with them tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I realized like there's something to this. It's like again, they're almost like intertwined in certain arenas, aren't they, with the paranormal and the UFOs, aliens?
Well, I mean, they how can I say it? It's like if you could divide teams and say good guys, bad guys.
Hmm. Okay.
Not alien, not all aliens are horrible. No.
No,
I
that's
mean,
true.
but it's
Hmm.
just like not all humans are horrible either, but just because they have more advanced technology doesn't mean they're good. And I
Hmm.
hate hearing that blanket like, well, no wonder they won't come and talk to us because we have such a bad attitude, or embrace all of them, try to bring them down. Come on, if I set out in front of my home and said, everybody, come on in. Come on in. It's
Yeah,
like, I don't know if they're packing. I don't know, but I'm just going to let you in because, you look like a good guy or
you're
something.
human. You're
You
human.
have
So come
got
on
to
in, all
discern.
humans.
You've got to discern what is, who you're allowing in your space.
Hmm.
And I don't understand why aliens are getting a pass, in some cases. And they're of course related. But with the line being divided, shadow people, Hat Man. If people have gotten a really good look at what Hat Man looks like, because you can see him totally in the flesh, and he does not look human. His face is not like it looks very alien,
Spooky.
very
Yeah.
much so. And if you go actually on my website, I have an image that was, of his face that was created over 100 years ago. of Hat Man. I did
I didn't
not
realize
know.
that.
Yes, I did not know what I was looking at. And my friend says, "Hey, Heidi, what do you think of this sculpture?" I'm like, "Wow, somebody did a really great sculpture of Hat Man." I said, "What did you say?" I said, "Well, that's Hat Man." Heidi, Rudolf Steiner carved this.
Wow.
What? It's like the anthroposophy founder over 100 years ago who
Yeah.
said 100 years from now, this guy, Ahriman, he gave him the name Ahriman,
Oh, I don't like that name.
is
Oh,
going to be coming to the surface and will be addressed 100 years from now. And I'm like, and also Rudolf Steiner called him the devil. That's what I
that's
call
why I
Batman.
don't like that name. That's what it gave. Again, goosebumps. That's what
That's
it
what I
gave me the feeling of. Hmm.
that's what I call Hatman. I mean, and it wasn't me calling him that, by the way. I had hundreds of emails saying, "Who is he? He's the devil, isn't he?" And the pattern was just showing up so much, and the reference and people being absolutely tortured by him. I'm not talking about just once or twice him showing up every night for 40 years for some people.
Hmm.
What do you
Hmm.
do? Sometimes it is just one time 40 years prior, but it terrified them so badly they hope and pray they never see his face again. I
Hmm.
mean, it's that terrifying. And I more recently have heard there's so-called researchers going out there saying all shadow people are benign. And they
What?
and they put Hatman in that category because he's a shadow being. Oh my God, no. Yeah, I'm not kidding you. And I'm like, and it's causing harm. I get emails from people saying,
Yes.
"Did you know somebody's speaking? Did you know your show?" I'm like, "I don't have a show, TV show, film." They're saying, well, oh my gosh, and it's like I'm sitting here fielding all the questions and trying to answer for over 20 plus years. And again, somebody just grabs and tries to make it there, try to make a living or whatever and make money off from things. And I don't charge people. They come to
I
me.
know you don't.
I
And you know
don't.
what?
And
What
I've given
you've been,
thousands of my books away too.
I know. And then what you've been through, like you have had some really crazy things happen ever since you were a child. I know you've talked about
Yes.
them before on previous shows. And
Mhm.
believe me, like I've heard, well, we've been on some of the same networks, and I've
Yeah.
heard like the letters that people write you. And even, for
Mhm.
example, I have a group on Facebook, and
Yeah.
I had shared, it is an incredible picture of Hat Man, and like you can't see his face or anything, but perfect outline. And
Mhm.
a friend of mine that I work very closely with, there's two ladies I work very closely with Spirit. And the one lady has had experiences with Hatman since she was a child, and she
Mhm.
had written something, and you were so kind because the way she had said it, it almost seemed like the picture was hers, but she was commenting, sharing her experience, and you were so sweet. You didn't even know her, and you offered, like you just read
Oh,
because you're part of the group, but I just love
yeah.
that you did that.
Of
And I
course.
know how many people you help because
Yeah.
you
Right.
have no shortage of stories, which is the sad part, isn't it?
It is, it is, and it's like, of course, if I'm available, I tell people, "Reach out."
Mhm.
I'm on most
You're the
platforms,
most
social
laid
media.
back person I've ever met.
Oh, come on.
You
I'm like,
are.
find me at one Heidi Hollis on all my social media. I'll respond, and they're
Mhm,
always surprised, like, "What?" They're like,
mhm,
"Of course, what is this life about if we're not here to lift each other up,
mhm.
and try to help each other out? Because I wish I had that help for myself.
Don't you? Like that's, you know what?
Mhm.
You know who I've been watching lately? Because I learned this way too, because as I would be called, I guess, the buzz term a light worker, but I get a lot of dark stuff too. And you know I do. We've talked
Yeah,
about some of this
yeah.
stuff. And so I watch people that are doing good things with negative things out there because I want to
Mhm,
see what are you doing, how are you helping them, how are you clearing them, and what have you. And the
mhm.
Foreman brothers, have you watched Paranormal Nightmare at all?
No.
I wish to God those guys were around because these guys, now they have, I believe it's a TV show, but they didn't for years. And they go out of their own pocket. Same thing, they don't charge. They
Mm.
go around, it looks like all of the US, but they go there to help residential hauntings. And they go in and they document what is going on. And there's some pretty crazy stuff,
Oh,
but
wow.
they remove it And most of the time, they have a pretty good success rate. And these things, because once these things know your name, as you well know, they don't forget. It doesn't matter where you go.
Oh gosh, no.
But the thing I love about them is they document. They've gotten some crazy stuff on camera, EVP, stuff like that. But
Yeah.
they've been through it themselves, and I think that makes such a difference. Like I've not looked them up, but they've talked in various episodes about as children they had to face something very demonic, the three brothers together, and so now they
Oh,
pay it forward as adults. And I don't get that they're seeking fame or fortune. Like that's what they really care about is, like,
right.
I think
Yeah.
one case I saw, they had to go to Bobby Mackey's to do some research. That's a famous paranormal place for people listening may not be aware of it in the United States. And I
Yeah.
guess the youngest brother who does the house blessings and staunchly belief in Jesus Christ and the whole bit, like it's a very fascinating thing to watch what they do. But he didn't want to go back there because the first time he
Mm,
had gone, and I believe it may have been with one of the guys from Ghost Adventures. I don't know, maybe he was involved way back when, but
mm,
I think something grabbed his shoulder and he was in agony for weeks after. Like he really did not want to go back to this place, but they had to do it for research for a residential case. But my whole point is,
mhm.
you know, when you've experienced something like this, and I know you've talked about it before on our shows, like ever since a child, and
Yeah.
you know what it's like to feel helpless like that, to be in that situation. And
Indeed.
again, you've just pointed out all the misinformation out there that people, where do you know where to find the truth? Where do you know need to go for
Right.
help? So I'm so glad that you do these
Yeah.
things, Heidi.
Been doing it for so long, and I had a column out there for a while too. It was called Alien Advice because
Mhm.
again, I covered mostly from the alien perspective and the shadow people topic. After I introduced it and it just started growing, I had no idea it would go to the extent that it has. I would never. I was warned that it would. You just can't fathom it. Um, that it was so bad out there. Like you said, it's like a limitless amount of stories. I have thousands of stories. The first night I spoke of them on the air, coast to coast AM, thousands of emails came in all at once, and at the time it was AOL, and AOL you have to save your emails or they get deleted.
Mhm.
It would just fill and delete, fill and delete. And I'm like, I can't go fast enough. I can't go. So it's a nonstop and endless supply of horror out there, and there's a way to overcome it. It's not. This is not a field you go into to go and make a dime. It's like
Mm-mm.
you do this because it's a passion, and us ladies are not as business minded, and the guys go out there. I've been sitting there signing books, right, and have a guy come up, thanks, I'm gonna go make a film now. I'm like, you can't, that's my story. But they go and wiggle around things and it's so odd. I'm like, I would never think that. But I guess that's
No.
we're kind of naive. But it's like for me, working so hard to do this type of thing has been because I remember my life before this. I remember agreeing to come here to do this. And a lot of people are like, "Well, where'd you get your info from?" And I'm like, from the other side before I was
Mhm.
born here. And then also having the contact that I did with these alien beings who told me and warned me, this is what you need to do. This is what you have to put out. And by the way, this is going to blow up to be exponentially huge. And then, if my life couldn't get any more peculiar, in my first book, The Secret War, that speaks of shadow people, Hat Man, and the alien conflict, um, I was in college when I wrote that. And, I was a skeptic. I'd seen so much stuff. And I was a skeptic of people who claimed to see Jesus in their bowl of soup in ridiculous places. I'm like, look, I'm not a psychic and I have seen so much stuff. I really thought that if Jesus were around, I would have seen him by now. And I wrote that in
Mhm.
that first book. And mind you, it took me 2 months to write that book and 4 years to find a publisher. And during that time, I'd sent it out to all these different authors, who were really close to, the Coast to Coast and Art Bell and all that stuff back then. Back then, all the only people that would publish such a book like what I wrote are other authors who write on these things, right?
Oh my
So
goodness.
so they all had the book, right? And the
Hmm.
conversations were, spinning. But long story short, I was a skeptic of Jesus popping around, and I'm sitting there editing, hoping. I had some of these authors saying, "Yeah, I want to publish this." No, yes, and back and forth, and then I finally gave up and did it myself. But during that meantime, while I was waiting and editing, I had an encounter with Christ. Okay,
Hmm.
and I was like, you know, it's so odd to say, to experience him, be a skeptic of him showing up to people, and I was raised Methodist, nothing,
Hmm.
not a strict religion or anything like that, and had a general understanding. I saw him more as a historical figure that said to come back one day. You have to say your prayers in his name. I understood all those things, but to be a conscious person, like part of God there. I mean, and it's this love thing that comes off from him. It's like you can't express it. And so I had to interject that into the Secret War book, and everybody's like, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" I'm like, I'm painfully honest, and I just had to put it because he came just before putting this book out. And what did he tell me? Do not worry what others say. Know that I'll be there to give you the words. He told me to finish writing that book, The Secret War. And then
Hmm.
I wrote the book called Jesus is No Joke because he came more. And it wasn't like,
You have, and again, I'm not going to divulge anything. We'll go wherever you want with the conversation, but I do know you have had some incredible experiences with Jesus, but also, and you know this about me as well, I have studied near death experiences professionally as well as personally for
yeah.
40 years. And
Mhm.
I believe I had an experience myself as a toddler.
Mm.
But the things you've had, I wouldn't even call them near death experiences. Like most people don't get this kind of information, it seems, unless they've had, it seems, an experience like a near death experience. But
And I
wow,
didn't know. Do you know I did not know that it was that rare? I didn't know that.
it is rare. Yeah.
It's only been more recently
Hmm.
that I'm like, yeah, so Jesus has stopped by. What did you almost, and people didn't, you know what?
Hmm.
People did not ask me, did you almost die or something?
Hmm.
And even after I published the book, it's like, what category does it go in? I'm like, what kind of fits a near death experience? But I didn't
Not
have a near
really.
death experience. Yeah. And it's like, hold on, Jesus kept showing up. I'm like, yeah, you did, and so it's amazing. I didn't know for 40 years you study that. It has
Mhm.
been like one of those things that I'm kind of coming to terms and understanding a bit. I just really didn't understand that was like that. And I did get people say, "Well, why you?" I'm like, "Why me? Why not you? He'll come to everybody."
Mhm.
I had no understanding. But yeah, there's some things I'm not addressing that I won't address right now.
Yes, and I respect that.
I appreciate it. Yes. It's been a really different world for me as of, this past couple years, but maybe in the near future I'll talk more on it.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's I just I could not when he came forward, I was just like telling everybody, "Wow, Jesus is no joke, everybody. This, like, he's real. He's here.
I love it. He's no
He's."
joke.
Yeah, so that's why I called it that. I called the book that because I was blown away at his presence, his understanding. And I mean, as somebody who's a skeptic of such things, and to have him come as he did and healed me. He healed me several times of incurable
I
things.
remember
Like,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
I just so if anything, I love to talk about those things more than the demonic stuff, but
I know you do.
people,
Yeah.
I get it. People like to they're experiencing globally this dark
I want to
presence.
have you back on here And we will. We can talk as much as you want about
Yeah.
whatever you want, but I want to talk to you about angels and
Yeah.
Jesus and all these things. I want to
Right.
do just a show on it because I've been meaning to have you on forever. I keep
It's
getting
okay.
goosebumps while I'm talking to you. It is not cold in here. That's usually my sign
Oh,
for truth.
oh, I love
But
it.
you
I
know what
love
I
it.
want to say to you?
Yeah.
That when people are claiming your work and doing whatever they are,
Mhm.
I always think, you hear the saying karma is a bitch. And I think people misunderstand karma. But what it is to me is what you put out there, meaning the global you, is what you will get back. So people that are claiming things that aren't theirs or
Yeah.
what have you, they will get it back because I really do believe that, and not in a retribution type of way. I think it's
No.
just part of experience that if you're going to take, you're going to get back what you took, right?
Yeah.
If you're a good person and I shouldn't say good person, we have the potential to be all, but you put out good things, you try to be kind, you try to help, some of the things we've been talking about with your
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
you're going to get that back. And eventually, another thing I truly believe, it takes a long time sometimes, but I believe the truth always rises to the surface.
Um,
Always. Hmm.
let's hope, the future holds more truths
I
than,
tell people all the
than
time, like if a shadow person comes up,
yeah.
the first person, I have sent your website to so many
Oh,
people.
that I know you're great. I appreciate you so much, and you're so supportive. You know,
Absolutely.
America has a persona of what it means to look like an authoritative figure, and it's not my face. And that's why these other faces and,
You
been
know
put
what I
forward.
think it is? Okay, now the first time I met you, we were on another network, and our
Yes.
previous producers made me think that. Remember, you had called in my second night. I used to do a show every week, and this is not a secret
Yes.
thing. I'm not going to give private details or anything.
That's okay.
And then I'd never spoken to you, but I think I'd heard your voice, and they didn't tell me it was you. And I was mentoring another person with me, a young guy, and he given you a reading, and then I did, and I was told you have to take a station break, and I've never done podcasting. It's like my second show, and so I thanked you. The reading was done, and
Yeah.
whatever, and we got off air, and our producer was screaming at me, "Do you know who that was?" And blah blah blah. Well, it horrified me. I thought, oh my god, did I offend her?
Oh
And I
my god,
remember
no.
messaging you and messaging you and messaging you. And when
Yeah.
so I mean, I didn't bombard you, but you messaged me back, like, I think within a couple hours, you were laughing. You're going, oh my God, no, I wasn't offended. And you were just
No.
so down to earth. And it was like, that's what it is. I think you just don't have an air about you. You
No.
don't, there's no arrogance about you. Let's think about it. People that walk around, especially in this field, with authority,
Yeah.
and I always say it's not my job to judge, but they just act, I guess, mightier than thou. A lot of them, not everybody, but a lot. Hey, Zach, welcome. And they have an air about them. You're very
Yeah.
approachable, and you know
Uh,
what, honey, that's going to serve you well throughout your lifetime. It will, because just think of the people you help in
I
your
appreciate
muggle job, as I call it, as an OT, and your other job that you do as well, because people need the help, obviously, or you wouldn't be getting all these emails and, what
yes. No,
have you.
I appreciate your support, and it's like it's so funny. Like you said, it's like some of the folks that are in these fields. I don't know where they get their ego from. It's so odd, but
Hmm.
because again, you go into this bare knuckles and swinging, trying to help.
Hmm.
That's the driving force,
Hmm.
and some of us, like myself, I remember agreeing to this. My life here is not my own. I've always known that, and I've been really comfortable with that too, and
You have,
understanding it.
yeah.
And it's humbling. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. I've been blessed with a good career as a therapist, and it helped me to be able to create the space for me to do this work,
Hmm.
and for people to trust me. They know I'm not going to
Hmm.
be the one to judge them. Hello, this woman's talking about seeing she saw Jesus and the devil. Come on now, aliens are talking. You know,
You know,
um,
it's sitting with me. I didn't mean to stop you there for a second, but it's sitting with me when you said earlier that people asked, why you? Why
yeah,
not you? Like, think about it. Like, if Jesus
why not anybody?
appeared to anybody else, or,
Mhm.
and he can ask, and
Yeah.
it it shall be given. But the thing is,
Yeah.
how many people would believe it? They would think either they're crazy or they're hallucinating or it can't be real. You've had so much high strangeness in your life. It was just like, hey, okay, I guess you're here. Come on in, right? There's a
You
big
know,
difference.
I tell people I could have been blind and seen it was him because
Hmm.
literally every
The
cell of my
energy.
body
No, but I meant
screamed,
you were
"It's
accepting
Jesus."
of it. A lot of
Yes, yes,
people would not be
yeah.
accepting of it, and you know that to be true, right? Like a lot of
Oh,
people
yeah.
are so doubting about so many things that because you can't see it, you can't taste it, maybe you can't
Yeah.
feel it. I think we can all feel it. It's just people aren't tuned into what that might feel like. What's your
Yes.
thoughts?
Oh, man. You know, I feel like cheated first, in having gotten my memories back, and then cheated in having Jesus practically give me a head noogie to wake me up.
Hmm.
You know, like, t of course, how could I forget what I came here for? I mean,
Hmm.
those were my words. How could I forget? I'm, apologetic, like,
We
it's like
all
forgetting
say that
my
apparently when we go back. How could I have forgotten what I went there for?
Yes, yeah, but
Hmm.
it's like the equivalent of forgetting my first name is Heidi, I'm like,
Hmm.
"Oh my gosh," like, it's shameful. I'll get right on top of everything. What am I going to college for? Oh my gosh, it's so silly, I have to get on top of these things. So, when I started, uh, like, boom, my memory came back. I almost ran outside in the cold, like, "What am I doing? I'm in school? What am I here for?" Oh my gosh, I'll tell you
Hmm.
just to back it up a little bit, because I don't know how many people have heard me say this story
I'm
before,
glad I was
but
going to ask you, but I thought
I
we'll go wherever it's going to
yeah,
go. I'm glad you're going to back it
so
up. Great.
I was talking to my friend. I was in college, becoming a therapist. I'm sitting there on the couch talking to my
Couch.
friend. I get up to walk across the living room,
Hmm.
and I am no longer there.
Yeah.
I am looking at a scene in space, okay?
Hmm.
I don't do drugs or anything like that, no mental health issues. Looking at a scene in space, and I see this spinning sun, and trillions upon trillions of lights are in this spinning sun, and each light represents a soul. And it's spinning
Hmm.
clockwise if you're looking at it from here, I always say. It's like it's spinning clockwise, and it's like a love soup. Like, I can't even describe
I
this
never forget
love,
those words. You
love
you
soup.
said that the first week we
Yeah,
talked,
love
and
soup.
that what better way to describe it?
It's beautiful, and
Hmm.
every light contributes to thoughts, ideas, whatever, missions, goals, and it would flow clockwise, and we'd all contribute to the thought, and it would go to the center, it would become one. And this thought came by, and it's like, of something that needed to be done here on this planet in this lifetime, and I remember casually, I always say casually thinking,
Reaching out and
"Ah,
I'll do
is
that.
that something I could do?"
Mhm.
And it was like everybody took a step back and like, "She said she'd do it." "What?" "Ah!" Shooting through space, and with everything I had, I'm screaming, "I take it back," because it was like having my heart ripped out. And again, I'm looking at this scene in space as a memory. To the side of it is the red spinning light, and I knew this place to be like a library of knowledge. Anything and everything that's happened happens. It's recorded there.
Mhm.
And I knew the place I was in. People say source. I know it as the source. I don't know what source is. The source, I know that. And this was not God. It was a part of, we contribute to, but God was in control and took the input from there, but we were not God in there contributing to this, but it was a beautiful love soup of oneness. We are connected. We know each other. And when I was leaving this place, and I always get goosebumps because I went to go get trained on other planets, other places, and especially this place I go to a lot, that I just call the Crystal City. It looks like
I love it.
ancient Greek buildings, but it's made of crystal, and white robed people, instructors, everything. And I go back and forth still there. And I can't meditate to save my life. Let me tell you, I don't aim for it. And so imagine, boom, I'm back in my body, standing in the middle of the living room, going, how can I forget? How can I forget? How can I forget? And I go to sit back down next to my friend. She goes, forget what? To use the bathroom? And it's like, how can I forget who I am and what I came here for? And she's like, I'm confused. And I said, what am I doing? I'm in college. I was like, I was just getting up. What am I? I was like, right then I wanted to run out and go do what I came here to do. And I've been running ever since. But that place was home. It's
That's
everything I
what I
know.
call it, home, going
Yeah,
back home. I always say
it is
that, going
home.
back home.
It
Hmm.
is home. And so I always say here, I don't know where home is because I remember, and it's been really difficult to want to stay here in these moments, knowing the enormity of where I came from and the love of where I came from. And the only closest thing I've heard to that is near death experiencers. Like, I was like, but oh man, it's like I remember the decision. It's not like picking parents and all that. No, I remember my whole understanding and agreement, and it was to come to warn and set the record straight on the threat that's here of these things against people's souls, shadow people, hat man, the beings, how they're intertwined. And I have to own up to it. And then Jesus shows up and says, finish the book. What? Of course, so I'm running, running, running. I'm being directed, told, and if I don't consider myself psychic. People will call it all sorts of stuff, but if I didn't pick up something in a dream, a vision, or whatever bilocation thing, somebody will come along and say something so direct and specific. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
got the message. Okay, I'm going. All right.
Hmm.
It's so I'm guided through this life, and I every time I finish a book, a project, or reach another plateau, I'm like, am I done yet? Can I go back home? It's like I was like, oh, I'm still here, and it's
Hmm.
not like I have a death wish, but this isn't home.
Well,
Uh,
that's just it, right? Like,
mhm,
so what, I don't know why I was drawn. I just turned 57. So I was 17.
mhm.
I was just about to go into university for nursing. And I was at my hairdresser's getting my hair cut. And we started talking, and her mom had recently passed away. And she said, I've just read this incredible book, Enter into the Light. So we're talking about it. And I went, I need to read that book. So I read it. It's by Betty Eadie. I couldn't put it down, not that it's a big book.
Yes.
I was drawn from that day forth after I read that book. I have had patients that have coded, or for people don't understand, their heart. I know Heidi does, but their
Mhm.
heart and breathing stops, and basically they've died. They're clinically dead, but
Yeah.
they're, for lack of I don't want to use a professional word, but they're revived. They come back to life.
Mm.
And I consider it such an honor and a privilege that these patients have talked to me about it, because working nights, sometimes on the floor you'd have 60 patients, but when people are sleeping, and when I worked on the floor, you had to mix like all your IVs, you had to mix everything, like not like nowadays when it's like write your own tickets, like transcribe the doctor's orders, you name
Uh,
it.
a
But
lot of
there were
work.
times I had time to sit out with patients if they were awake at night. And I can remember a couple, but one in particular, he was palliative, meaning for those listening, he was terminally ill, but he had arrested, and the doctor hadn't written what's called a DNR, do not resuscitate.
Mm.
Now, I guess we had a newer grad when his heart stopped, and so they called what's called a code. They restarted his heart. And what had happened though, this person, without any judgment, wasn't really well educated, a little bit on the slower side, we'll say mentally. But you
Okay.
knew he was telling you the truth. That he said, I was up on the ceiling, and he could describe everybody that came in the room. He could tell you the name of the medication, how much was given. There were so many things this gentleman knew. There was no way that he was not on top of the ceiling like he said he was,
Yeah.
looking down at his body.
Right.
And I just had somebody on, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? He had a near death experience, and he had shared, he's in the paranormal world.
Mhm.
He had had a problem with drugs, and he OD'd 12 times. When he said it on the show, I said, you were meant to be here. He goes, yeah, I certainly was. Because the last time I had a near death experience, he said, and again, those are the people that seem to know what their purpose is. Like you said, they
Yeah.
realize why they agreed to come here.
Mm.
And then they never have a fear of death. The same thing. They don't have a death wish, but it's like, when can I go back home?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's just really it didn't dawn on me, I swear to you. Even, like,
Hmm.
more recently, I'm learning that that's not common to have that kind of reflection. I've interviewed so many people, and I asked specialists and people who
Hmm.
have studied professionally near-death experiences, and I'm like, "What about people that spontaneously recall coming from the source?" Uh,
Hmm.
no, I we have not had anybody. I'm like, "Oh, never mind." I'm like, "What is this?"
Hmm.
And then
That's very rare.
yeah, what
Hmm.
I haven't found that, and it's like, it was so strange because, when I was explaining to my friend right after it happened, I said, "It was as if my memories were right here in front of my forehead, and they allowed me to take a peek in, lean into it, and get it just enough to put me on the path." And she's like, "Who?" And I was like, "Well, that's a good question. Who? Who allowed that? Somebody did." And it's so it again, it's such a humbling position to be in, to have the cheats, because I do,
Do you
you
think
know?
maybe you contracted that before you came here, with the fact that if certain things occurred in your life, because I always say we come in here with amnesia, spiritual amnesia, right? We don't remember our previous lives or why we're here or
Right.
our purpose. But it seems, like I said, people with near death experiences, they get the cheat notes. Or do you think maybe with the way life is going, like maybe you were given the big picture, and for whatever reason, because it's an important, you have an
Mhm,
important mission here with what you're doing already, never mind. And again, I would never ask, and I don't need,
mhm,
I'm not asking you what
yeah,
you're supposed to do. That's your own personal thing. But
mhm,
do you think maybe that's why one of the reasons?
because certain things are going in a certain path, you think?
So like it was,
Mhm.
if okay, I've got many different paths before me,
Oh,
this is
I
an
see.
important mission, so if I get off
Yeah.
my path, is there a way maybe that I could get the cheat notes? Or do you know what I'm saying?
It could be because,
Hmm.
I was a comic strip artist then, and I had my
Hmm.
stuff syndicated in 12 newspapers.
Hmm.
I had the opportunity to get in to go bigger and wider,
Hmm.
but I was
Hmm.
busy in college, really busy, and, trying to reestablish that. I worked 3 jobs, I was I was doing so much. So, I mean, I probably given that nudge, like, "You're not here for your self-gain. You're not here to settle down, get married, have kids. You're not here for that.
Hmm.
Remember." And once I did, nothing else mattered. And, if you think that's amazing, Jesus was even more tremendous. Just because his presence is something you can't even imagine, and it's like, I'm looking Heidi, wants to be a comic strip artist, a human Heidi, that's it. I didn't want, and Jesus is
I
a
always call it the
historical
muggle
figure.
job, the
Yeah,
muggle job.
yeah, and Jesus is a historical figure. I know I'm supposed to say his name after prayers, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, that's all memory stuff. And then to get recall, you're supposed to be doing your mission thing, and Jesus popping up first, one of his first things is, "You need to finish writing your book. Don't worry what other people say. No, I'm there to give the words." And, like, nothing else matters. "Hey, Heidi, you wanna go out to—" No, I have things I have to do." "Hey, hey, what are you doing over here?" You don't understand, and I get that, and learning to address these things, having the sense of humor, being the type of person I am too, and, laid back, and, I understood people didn't get it. I sometimes envied them for not knowing, things,
Yes.
and could just, "Oh, kickball that's the best thing for adults today." Like, "Oh, that'd be fun." No, I'm sorry, I gotta go try to save some people from demons,
Hmm.
and the devil, and warn the world because Jesus asked me to. What a thing to say. And again, you don't wanna seem egotistical because
Or
people
even, who could
will
you tell? Like, you got to be able to send this out, that, like, be able
yeah.
to say that in a certain arena,
People
right? Without.
people don't
Hmm.
understand you're not in this for that. If you
Hmm.
are really here with the good intentions and knowing, you can't. You got the training for not doing that, and
Mm-hmm.
but anybody, like family, friends, they're just like, they're probably thinking, well, if it were me, that's what I'd be going for, because they don't remember. I get it, they don't understand the drive. It's like, well, geez, you're not making a living off that. You're still practicing as a therapist? Yes, I am. But you don't understand this is a short life.
Mm-hmm.
What comes after this is tremendous. And there are things trying to stop the progression of mankind. Your spirit may be trapped if I don't continue. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
know it seems tremendously like, what a ego, Heidi. No, all I could do is tell you I have to do this part. And, I'm nobody special. I just remember certain things. I know certain parts I'm supposed to do and play in the bigger role of things. And it's important, and I've had some people are like, wow, you're lucky that because I'm sitting here going, what do I do with my life? I'm like,
I think it's lonely to be able to, and I mean it not in a sad perspective, but I
mhm.
mean, like, you remember, and like you said, everybody around you doesn't. Like,
Yeah,
ignorance is bliss, right? That's what I mean about the loneliness, because
yeah,
not that you're a lonely person, it's that having that lonely, it's isolating. That's not the right word, lonely, but
yeah,
so isolating, because to try and explain it, just you even sharing it right here now with the
yeah.
magnitude of it all is what I'm saying. Lonely was the wrong word.
No, I get it.
Isolating.
I get what you're saying, because it is, and it's really like, oh man, you wish, and this has been my whole thing, you wish you could rip your soul open so people would take a peek to even get a hint of what you've experienced and what you've seen, some
Mm-hmm.
evidential something for people to understand. And that's been really hard, because it makes me feel bad for people not knowing, though, too, because
Mm-hmm.
there's threats walking around them, waiting for them to just mess up. And it sounds so cliche. Oh, that's the devil on the left shoulder and the angel on the right. I'm like, yeah, where'd that come from? Even a rumor dies after a certain amount of time, but that one's still living, probably because it's real. And I have friends that are anti-religious talk. I'm not religious. I'm faith-based. I am Christian because it reflects more closely to what it is I understand. Jesus knocked on your back door or on your front of your forehead. Yeah, you're Christian. So you believe. But it's so oh, how can I say? It is so enamoring to know the truth of these things. And all I could do is use myself as an example in this world to try to get
Mm-hmm.
people to understand. I'm willing to put my name out there. This is my real name. People use all sorts of names to
Yeah.
represent their
It's not
work.
a ghost name or
Oh my
ghostwriter
gosh.
name.
Yes. I've known people for years in this business, and I'm referring to them. They're like, Heidi, you know what? That's not my real name. What? I've known you for 10 years. You've been using your middle name or your mother's maiden name? What? I
I
do not.
met somebody about 6 months ago, and I knew them by their real legal name.
Mhm.
All of a sudden they start going by this other name, and I was asked to be on a podcast with them. Oh my god, I
Yeah,
had to like pause not to call them by their legal name, and it was a name
yeah.
that it was a name of a month, I'll put it like that, and it was a name
Mhm.
that they had always liked, and so they chose this. But why? I don't understand why. It's the same thing. If you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to put your name out there, like, I've never hidden my name either. Dell,
Yeah.
my partner on the other half, what does he do with our episode? His great grandfather, when he came to this country, had a very odd spelling of his last name that was from the Ukraine.
Mhm.
So Dell decides it, and then when he came here, he changed it to the present spelling. So Dell decides he's going to go back to the original spelling of his name on the episode. So nobody can find him. You can't even pronounce it, let alone
Oh.
see it. And so I get all the interesting people. We'll put it because you know what I find the fascination is, and actually I'm so glad we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
I get so many people writing me begging, like not just writing, like begging and like really getting insistent. They want to know the name of the demonic entity that I had this dream that started all my activity with. And it's like, no, no. Well, I think I want to know it. And then they always guess the usual suspects that they see on every horror movie. It's like, no, and even if you've got the name right, I'm not telling you. You do
Yeah.
not realize, because people, and I'm trying not to sound judgmental, but it makes me angry, is people
Mm,
that have never dealt with the kind of things that you've dealt with, that I have dealt with myself, and just
yeah.
I'm not even close to experiences you've had, that when you deal with this kind of stuff, you have no idea. You were smaller than a gnat if you have no knowledge, with the fact that, well, you just send that thing to me, I'll kick it in the butt. You have no idea. It's going to go after your health, your finances. It's going to go after your children, your
Yes.
pets, things you can't control that will hurt you and wound you the deepest, because that's when you're most vulnerable. And yet you get these people writing saying, well, tell me the name, tell me the name. I really, oh dear Lord.
It's
And you see
ridiculous.
what they're walking around all
Yeah.
over. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, I don't know. It's like the ego of some people, or the demands. It's like, look, we dealt with it in our own way, respect it. It's like, I never say that I have all the answers. We all have our pieces to the puzzle, and we get some corners of the puzzle that we get to solve, and we just kind of move forward. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know why people are so darn curious about some of the most dark, evil, horrible things, and that's why I don't I'm always humbled to be able to work in this space. I
Mm-hmm.
just it is so dark, and it is so
Oh.
heavy. I mean, I don't know many psychics that like to work in this area even, and they're like, "How are you handling?" I'm like, "How do you sleep well?" I'm like, "Usually on my left side." I mean, I sleep pretty good because my faith is pretty strong. I'm able to keep
Mm-hmm.
things at bay. And again, the religious angle, people think you're a Bible thumper or whatnot. I'm like, I'm practical. You just wrote me, and this happens so much. People will write me and say, I don't believe in the church and religion or anything, but I just saw the devil. I'm like, you said devil, but you're afraid to say God or Jesus? What's wrong here? Just because there's a horrible situations happen with various types of religious institutions, the Catholic being one of the worst. You threw away God with it? You like,
Mm-hmm.
really? You threw away God, and you are dealing with what you know is the devil, and you're contacting me on the other side of the planet to give you answers. I'm like, so you have no faith, then throw a shoe at it. I always say, throw a shoe
Yeah.
at it,
Yeah.
because you are to the polar opposite. You better pray that thing exists, that God, that Jesus, or exists, angels, because you're on your own. Otherwise, I can't help you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like Jesus always said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed.
Mm-hmm.
And I love to, I have great Jewish and Muslim friends and other belief systems, and they're like, why are you into that Jesus guy and blah 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 blah. I'm like, what's the date today? And they're like, such and such 2022. I'm like, oh, seems like you acknowledge Jesus too, because that's after his death.
Mm-hmm.
2022. Now they're trying to mix it up and say BCE, after death, or BCE, and they don't want to acknowledge Jesus. I'm like, he did something truly tremendous in order for us to change our clocks to mark it by our calendars when he died and
Mm-hmm.
before his life. And people think it's such a long time ago, 2,000 years. I'm like, how old are humankind? He hasn't been gone that long. He has not been gone that long in the capacity that people believe. He is very present and helping. You call on that name, and I mean, I've spoke to people from all sorts of walks of life, from the scientific minded to those that investigate UFOs, and uh, people say, "In Jesus' name, leave me alone," to aliens, demons, dark beings, and
That's
they
why I brought up the
listen.
Foreman
They
brothers. I
listen.
forgot to mention
They
that, but I
listen.
think I said it briefly.
Yeah.
That's who they work with Jesus.
Well,
And there's
that
a lot
that's
of, mm-hmm.
that's the name that works in the
Mm-hmm.
face of so-called aliens. Why
Mm-hmm.
would that work? Why would that offend them, hurt them, where they run out the door? And I've heard from a really small minority of people's like, "Oh, it didn't work. You just saw them leaving when you just so happened to say Jesus' name, leave." No, in their faces. Hat Man leaves, shadow people leave, aliens leave in their faces, not after, not that people like to distort. And it's like, again, it doesn't bother me what other people believe to be true for themselves. I have my faith. I don't question it.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is real. No, he is. And he's very present and very aware. And it's like all you can do is respect each other for what they believe to be true. You don't have to bash or put down. It's okay to have your faith. It's okay to be outside of the church and have your faith, not your religion, your faith. And these dark things are placing bets on us to not address and pull
You're
from
reading
the
my
God,
mind. You're reading my mind because
placing
I
bets
wanted.
on us to not figure it out.
That's what
To
I was
know.
going to ask you.
Yeah.
With what we've gone through collectively around the world, and we're
Mhm.
going on 3 years, is that one of the reasons why, when you said you were reminded about why you came here and agreed to come here, and or it was Steiner you were mentioning it over 100 years ago, had said that
Yes.
shadow people and what have you, Hat Man would be
Catman.
prevalent, and why? So is it because of what went on collectively? Because we know when people, even like there was a lot of depression, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of division, there was a lot of things that wasn't, if you will, promoting love and oneness. Okay, there was a lot of division. Was that like almost like a crack within the, I don't know what you want to
Mm.
call it, it's not the matrix, but it was a way in? Like, are you seeing a lot more of this? Because I know I am a lot more
Yes.
evil. Mm-hmm.
Very really much so, and the reason why is they're getting desperate. They know time is short, things are
Mm-hmm.
shifting, people are waking up
Mm-hmm.
to other understandings. They have backed away from some of the practices of, Jesus, because some man in a robe violated children, which is horrible, but
Mm-hmm.
that is not God. God is
Mm-hmm.
separate from the person speaking. It's just we have to stop blaming and we are held responsible. With knowledge comes responsibility. So that guy messed up. You better open up the book yourself and learn these things. We've got to stop dilly-dallying because the threat is increasing. It is so disgusting. You can't imagine. And people are like, well, what's so bad about Hat Man? I heard from there's a handful of people that are trying to grow this. Hat Man feels like a guardian angel. I'm like,
Oh my God, it just about fell off my chair.
thank
Oh,
you. I'm like, does a guardian angel rape you? Men and women, children? Really? I didn't I ever heard of one like
and
that.
if
I mean,
people don't believe that, there are
yeah,
people out there, they may hide their faces, the ones I have seen. That
yeah.
isn't just in horror movies. And I'm getting
No,
goosebumps telling you
it's
it
horrible.
happens.
It
Hmm.
happens, and it's one of those things when people reach out to me, and it's at the level of these experiences with Hat Man that I know they're not telling me that next extra tidbit he raped me. But it's out there quite a bit. They do share if
And
you get
who
into
do
a
you
conversation.
tell? Who do you
That's what
tell?
that's what I'm here to try to help with and get
Hmm.
comfortable with it. They don't have to share that happened. I understand. It's a matter of not always knowing why he's there. Does it matter? People want those answers. Sometimes you can put your finger on it, sometimes not. But 9 times out of 10, guess what? It's not because you did something rotten. It's because you were so unique, so special, creative,
Hmm.
observant, where you saw these things, you could see other things going on, and he wants to stomp that light out on you because you could warn others there's something behind you.
I was
Pay
told
attention,
that.
be aware. It is all about evolution of mankind he's trying to stop.
In years ago, when I was trying to find out why this was happening, and I
Yeah.
kept being told this, and I kept thinking it sounds really egotistical, though, for someone to say to me that you're going to be doing something that's not good for their side. They don't want you doing it. So that's why they're showing up. And that was something that kept coming up time and again. And now, again, I'm not coming from a place of ego, and most people don't work with the type of stuff that we work with. Like I said, I would be called, I guess, a light worker. I remember
Yeah.
even working with one of my mentors when I saw somebody possessed on camera, and I don't ever want to see that look of evil in anybody ever again. They were levitating on camera,
Oh,
and I was like, oh my God. And then I remember, um, it was after, and somebody did witness this. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, my time, Eastern time, and somebody on the West Coast was awake. And so they witnessed it. They weren't much
Mhm.
help, although I thought they might have been, but they weren't. I think they were
Mhm.
shocked. But the scary part, okay, guys, if you don't think these things know what's going on, that you don't have to speak or whatever, this person this was going on with lives on the southern tip on the West Coast in USA. I was sitting there after it hung up the phone about 2 hours later, and I'm saying in my head the Our Father for this person. I'm praying for them. I
Yeah.
get a message, I kid you not, on Messenger that says, "Cut that effing SHIT out.
Oh,
I
wow.
know what you're doing." Mm-hmm.
That's
Then,
horrifying.
then I got a little PO'd because a half hour later I got another message that said, "It's time." And I went, "Okay, time for what?" Because I was ready. I was ready because I work with the archangelic realm. Anybody that follows my show knows part of why I call it the angel rock. I love angels, higher vibrational beings,
Right.
crystals, and rock music. It's who I am, right? And so I thought, okay, let's go there.
Yeah.
Didn't hear anything else, kind of backed away. But I'll tell you, how did it know I was praying?
Right. Right.
And just because I don't run around talking about what my beliefs are, you
Right.
wouldn't believe, you'll I don't read comments very often, but you'll see a few comments. Well, the problem why this happened to you, you're living in sin or you don't have a belief in God. That's what your
Hmm.
problem is in Jesus. Then
Right.
how do you know what my beliefs are? Just because I don't talk about them, we would never have gotten through what
Right.
we went through.
Right.
So there you go.
Oh, these
You,
dark things really
mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm,
tricky stuff, tricky stuff. I mean, Hat Man came after a patient of mine, after a couple other therapists asked me, "What is this you do in the paranormal?"
mm-hmm.
And sitting there, I talked to him for about 15 minutes. One went to get a patient, comes back with them within the parallel bars where there's mirrors all the way around, trying to help a patient stand. And I hear shrieking. And I'm called to come out there, and I go out there, and here's the patient leaning up towards the mirror going, "What? What?
Oh,
Who's this man talking to me in a foreign language?" And the therapist's
oh.
like, "Heidi, Heidi, what is this? What is this?" And I said, "Oh my gosh." I leaned down, I said, "Sir, is he wearing a hat?"
Mm-hmm.
"Yes, he's wearing a hat. He's right behind you." I mean, just I got goosebumps because, I mean, we just spoke of him. So they hear you. They
Oh,
see
yeah.
you. Um,
And they don't forget who you are, do they? Once they know your name.
you know what's really crazy? I think since the last we spoke, Hat Man, people have asked him, "Who are you?" He used to say the devil, right? Or other nicknames for the devil. Now he says he's Hat Man. Yeah,
Mm.
he took the name I gave him. It's not, I don't think I'm making my parents proud by naming the devil, but yeah, here we stand. But I keep relying upon the fact that Jesus literally asked me, to work on these things, and I agreed to it. But he told me he didn't ask me. He said you need to finish writing your book.
But think about it though, Heidi, too, right?
Mm.
Like you've given him this name. A
Yes.
lot of people may hear the devil and, it evokes an emotion, a fear, what have you.
Yeah.
So, and when you've got people leading other people astray out there, telling people that it's your spirit guide and it's not,
And
you know what?
benign.
There's a very distinctive name out there. He's now using it.
Yes.
And again, I said this earlier in the broadcast, right? I believe the truth always reveals itself.
Yeah.
So if the name has changed, he hasn't. What he's all about
Yeah.
doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, so true. Well, it's like saying these things are benign, they're not all bad, or
No.
it's a guardian. Yes, that's what I'm like, "You know what? That's causing a lot of harm." I mean, there's kids watching. Kids are writing me, and, that's why I wrote the kids book that I did. Hold on, actually.
It's amazing. I was going to bring that up, and I'm so glad that you did do that, Heidi, because a lot
Yes,
of kids can't talk to anybody or they're not believed.
right. So, here, I'll pull it back.
Aw.
So and it's for adults too, so
Mhm.
to learn, because people are like, "Well, what do I do?" So I know I've got him, or the shadow beings or the different types of creatures, and This is that's the alien one. That's the little short little guy with the hood.
The one's mine called the shy guy, but he
Yes,
had a
the shy.
Jason hockey mask.
Yeah, yes, yeah. That's
I think I have a picture of him
Oh,
off of
really?
our security camera. Yeah.
Oh, and
Um,
so I show how to go about, dealing with these things and how to bless and protect your property, because it's just your space, your personal space, whether you're at home or whatever it is, because they'll follow you to work as well, you
mhm.
know. So it's like it's just always a battle. I don't know if this is gonna
Well, I
stay.
think you just demonstrated that by a patient seeing it behind you at work in the
Yeah.
mirror. So,
Oh,
mhm,
it is. If one thing that I'd like to get across to people, yeah, these things are listening, but guess what? One of the it was a few sightings of Jesus ago that that's so funny to use it that like a time stamp. About so many times I saw Jesus ago. Um, he emanated something to me. Like he let it be known that every broken bone, every insult, every harm or injury to your soul, he feels it. He
oh my
knows.
goodness.
He knows it. And it was so incredible. It's like he felt everything. And it's like, and he was anxious to return. How about that? Is anxious to return. Like, he didn't say a word to me. All this was just floated my way. Like, he's aware of it all. And it pained him. And he was anxious to return, but he was waiting for something to happen, and I don't know what that one thing is. It's one thing, okay?
Mhm.
And, people are like, "Oh gosh, maybe we're in the end times right now," and I'll tell you one thing that's, important to me when I hear that, like, people almost sound anxious for it. I'm like, "But we'll lose too many people because not enough people know the truth and to get their faith right, not their religion, their faith right, to know that they can stand up against these things with their faith, God, Jesus, God, the good standing with you, because these things are taking people out in the middle of the night. Hatman has been seen to push a tree over and have it hit a car, you know? So they're killing people.
Mhm.
They're taking them out, they're taking their souls, they're possessing them. Suddenly your dad had an accident, he comes back and he's really different. You don't know why. And it's like we're losing a lot of people. And people are waiting for this battle in the sky to show up, like, oh gosh, between the good and evil. I'm like, the battle is in the privacy of people's homes, and they're not being believed when they wake up screaming, I almost died just now. And you're like, it was just a
Mhm.
bad dream. It's night terrors. To address night terrors, sleep paralysis, that was
Yeah,
not
let's
a thing.
talk about that
That
because
was
I've been seeing a lot of that lately.
that was not a thing until, gee, that Heidi is making this really popular, this shadow people thing. Let's poo-poo that and say that's a chemical happening in your brain that keeps you paralyzed so you don't run in your sleep if you're having a nightmare of running. Okay, wearing a hat? Really? These things that people are imagining are suddenly they're really identical, and it's like, come on now. They had to answer the call and make it a scientific claim to push it out of people's psyche, because there's millions of us talking now. Millions around the world are talking, and they're putting two and two together like, you too. Oh my gosh. Oh, sleep paralysis. Oh, I just need drugs to sleep through this. Oh my gosh, are we putting people's souls at risk to sleep through it and forget it happened? I'm worried. I'm concerned. I'm not a doctor. I'm not proclaiming to be. If you feel you need that, go that route, of course. But my advice of my research of what is going on here, it is not what it appears to be. There is a phenomenon going on. It's real, so real that it got the scientists off their behinds to try to come up with, oh, well, this is the answer. You just need this. Um, I'm terrified and worried for people, with just going under that blanket response?
No, I have to agree with you because and it kind of makes me angry when I see this. What's the same thing with a near death experience that you get,
Mhm.
scientists until you had Dr. Eben Alexander who claimed
Yeah.
to be an atheist and everything
Mhm.
else, world, very well known neurosurgeon in his parts in the US and, you
Yeah.
know, same thing. A near-death experience, people are experiencing this because of neurochemicals in their brains and the lack of oxygen and blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, till he had one himself.
Exactly.
Well,
Different
now,
story, huh?
it's the same thing with the sleep paralysis. When I see people with sleep paralysis and they're
Mhm.
willing to talk about it almost every time, there's something over top their bed, or they can feel it, they can see it, they're terrified, they can't move. Yet,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes, there is there. Think about it. How many people have had dreams where you've woken up and you're moving? Like, yeah, I guess there is maybe something, and there's apparently a syndrome out there that some
Mhm.
people are missing this chemical to put you in a paralytic state while you're
Yeah.
dreaming so you don't take off. How do you explain sleepwalking? How do you explain all this other stuff? Like, people move when they're sleeping. Maybe
It's a
some
crock.
people have this chemical, but I'm sorry, sleep paralysis, I don't buy it, what
Yeah.
they're putting out there. Hmm.
Not they're all seeing the exact same things. They feel as if something's in their room and they see a shadowy figure
Yeah.
and some
Hmm.
with a hat and suit. Oh, that's pretty specific, doc. I don't know. There's
Hmm.
about 5 million posts about it online. How are we gonna talk that one over? I'm just sick of it. The one thing that I know for a fact, and everybody knows for a fact now, aliens are real, right?
Oh yeah, I believe
They
it.
they've actually talked about aliens impregnating people. The government have been talking about this.
I've had a reading since I talked to you.
Yeah.
I got to tell you this very, very
Uh,
quickly. Okay, because
yeah.
this is going to support what you're saying.
Uh-huh.
This girl had a near death experience. And I also believe after people have had this, that they have access to a lot of different gifts that they didn't have before. I think
Mhm.
we all possess them, but for whatever reason, we haven't unlocked them all. Okay. So as she's talking, she keeps calling these things visions. I've had these visions.
Mhm.
And so when we talk about it further, we realize she's sleeping and she's having these very vivid dreams. So she's up on a spaceship and she starts to tell me who's there. It was literally like, I don't think this woman realized this. She was projecting the images into my mind. I could see
Mhm.
what she was experiencing. I found a picture while we were talking of something that was almost identical to what she was explaining. But
Yeah.
as she's starting to say, they're standing there and one is in between her legs. I already knew what was going to happen. I already knew. Told me, pregnant, had a baby girl, baby was
Mhm.
gone, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into all the specifics because I would never
Mhm.
give away somebody's reading. But my whole point was I already knew before she even got into anything that would have identified that there had been a sexual encounter and a pregnancy and the
Mhm.
baby no longer there. But the human is still missing this baby, still grieving for this baby, still feeling this baby.
Mhm.
How do we explain that?
Well, exactly. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if our government's admitting and recognizing these are phenomena that are true, that are really happening, and the UFO phenomenon, and these dark entities are seen right alongside of them, and the deeper understandings that our government has, they have the full picture. I don't know if anybody saw it's literally this is the title of an article I saw about a week ago. And just like that, we're making oxygen on Mars. There's enough oxygen they've made that could support a dog to walk on Mars. Are you kidding me? You think that's new? No. They've
No.
been doing this for a long time. They're very aware. So, how do aliens get into people's homes? Well, sometimes they walk right through the wall. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they beam right in. How are they doing all this stuff? Well, guess what shadow people and Hatmen do? They come right through the walls. They have very similar ways of accessing a person,
Mm-hmm.
pinning them down, paralyzing them, taking advantage, giving them scenarios in their mind of nightmares, and then they seem to feed upon it. And then when their fear is gone, they seem to leave because they can't feed upon it anymore. So they find
Mm-hmm.
your greatest weaknesses, your greatest fears, and they break you down. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like so and trust me, there's been a lot of government folks involved in quote unquote UFO research that are seeing these shadowy things that feel their souls are being threatened and have reached out to different clergy for help. And you'll hear them talk about, I'm putting religious items around my bed at night. Well, come on now. So they know there's a battle. There's a battle for souls. It's their good and bad and they're dabbling in things that I don't feel that they were ready for, but, the drive of the human spirit is to gain more land and power and, hoard that information, you know? Farmers back in
And
the
cure
day.
illness. We have so many cures for illness out
Oh,
there, but will we ever see them?
no, I
Mm-mm.
personally knew 2 scientists, one's an engineer and one's a scientist, who created anti-gravity, machines, okay, that were perpetual motion. They would pull the energy from the air, and they would levitate, and they try to get funding to make bigger machines. Guess what? They were shot down. There's 3 of them, but one was murdered suspiciously as a warning shot across the bow. Don't do that. And you've heard of others that have invented these things. They suddenly end up in prison. Gosh, I wonder, or dead, or committed suicide somehow. Um, you know, we are being limited. And I like to give the example of people who, back in the day, when we were trying to grow, we had a really, say there's a really smart kid in the family of 12, everybody else is farmers, but we're going to educate this one kid in the family, and we'll send them off to university or whatever to learn from the people who know things, and then they gather and they learn things together, and they start hoarding the information. Your family back home is really stupid, they can't handle the truth. We're just going to keep building what we know and growing ourselves, benefiting ourselves, and play dumb if they ask us anything. This is like something that's been perpetuating through centuries. And it's grown into the monster called our governments and politicians, who said they went out to represent our neighborhood and then our county, our community, our state. And they kept hoarding, because this is the way that they do it. They hoard that information. They keep you at a level or now they're making colonies on other planets. People are talking about it. Who in the United States they think our young men and women join the forces, the military forces, because they like to kill things or something. No, so they hold our education over our heads, and they're like, "Oh, you want to go to college, or are you poor? You can't afford it? Well, if you go risk your life for 4 years, we'll let you go to school. We'll help you pay for it." This is why we're enlisting, this is why it's a
Mhm.
big deal, and why they don't want to give it to us, because we will not go to fight these stupid wars if
Mm-mm.
we have the choice to go to college, and it's like, gee, why Americans are not keeping up with technology? We got to go and get people from other countries. Yeah, because we got to risk our lives in your wars you're making over silly stuff, rubber in Vietnam and oil in the Middle East, and it's
Right.
like, we will not go fight those wars. So this hoarding of information, as we sit here supporting these structures, it's not going to end. It's like people are like, "Are we in the end times?" I said, "We're in a time of change, because
Mhm.
enough is enough." We know they've got these technologies. We know they're hoarding it. There's fake abductions of alien abductions. Some are real, some are government, some are, but what do you do? It's like you'll end up with a bullet in your head if you know too much.
Oh,
You know?
yeah.
It's
Mhm.
it's ridiculous, and, people have to trust themselves and know there's a battle going on. You as an individual are being threatened with negative things. The government's aware of it. They're they're having fun, learning new technologies from these certain beings so they could go and have fun with new toys they won't let us in on, or a new planet they wanna go and live on. But, there's bad and good that comes with, this give and push stuff. I mean, it just, it's a lot, but, one thing that we can do is just try to keep ourselves clear and straight that, there's a God, there's something positive on our side, and we can overcome when something's trying to crowd in on our human potential.
Plus, I think too, how you had brought up about your experience with back home, we'll call it, and the oneness. We are this here. And that's been part of my message is put your differences aside. Let's all agree to disagree if you need to, but
Mhm.
realize we are all part of each other. We are
Yes.
stronger as a united front. Now, whether we're dealing with Hat Man or, you know, the shadow person or whomever it may be, right? With
Mhm.
God and Jesus on your side. But my point I'm trying to make here is when we all stand up together collectively, you don't have to go to war. Nobody
Right.
has to get hurt, but you stand up. There's strength in numbers, and you say, no more.
Right.
No, we're not going to accept this. And I've also been saying it doesn't matter where we live. I think, again, the word apocalypse, right? To reveal once was which was once hidden. I think we're in those times because a lot is being revealed.
Mhm.
But also, I think it all needs to be torn down. We need new infrastructure, new education systems, we need new healthcare. And I think, believe it or not, and I'm not a fan of him, so don't strike my show down there, Mr. JT, in Canada here, but his half brother said it best. In this day and age, with the internet, do we really need to elect a stranger to go to one place somewhere in our country to be our representative as a voice? We could technically all, start locally,
Yeah.
meet your needs locally. You don't need to be sending somebody. And it's true. It really is true.
It's a different world. It's just like we have a strange way of electing officials here. It's old, it's outdated,
Mm-hmm.
and so much restructuring needs to be done, but there's too many old fuddy-duddies in the power,
Mm-hmm.
and they won't change that because then that means they lose their capacity to have the big homes and all this. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want that. No way. I mean,
Well,
here
people
is the
don't realize.
anti-gravity. Anti-gravity machines exist where you don't ever need to pay an electric bill,
You
but they
told
will
me
not allow
this.
that. They
You
won't
told
allow
me
it.
this a few years ago, and I
Mhm.
wasn't so sure. I was willing to entertain it because it was coming from you. We've had many interesting off air conversations. But I have to
Yes.
tell you on air, you're 100% right, girl, because I really believe it doesn't matter who it is, government, your representative, they could go in with a good heart, they could go in with perfect intentions, but once they join the league, you either
Yeah.
play with the team or you're not even on the bench, you're gone. And that's the
Yeah.
point. It doesn't matter whether you think one side is better than the other. It's just fingers on the same hand, is what I'm saying. And like you're talking about, ET and UFOs and what have you. I have a friend I used to have on my show quite a bit, and he just finally put this all together collectively. And it's why the secret space program will always remain secret. And he said the disclosure should have happened. I think it was May the 6th, 2002. His name's Dan Willis.
Mhm.
And he went, I think it was a New York Press Club. And there were 21 scientists as well as people that were very high up in the military, what have you. And they all came with what the kids are calling nowadays the receipts. So they came with the proof. And they
Mm.
swore under oath that
Yeah.
they were willing to go to Congress and testify. All the major news agencies were there. Should have been like disclosure day.
Yeah.
Instead, what happened? It showed up if it did on any broadcast last 15 seconds and a mockery made of it. Some people believe in the existence of ETs. At that time, they had the existence of 57 different types of ET and extraterrestrials, along with, you're talking about technology, my
Yeah.
my theory is what we know about us, meaning all of us that know about whatever, they're
Yeah.
probably most countries 50 to 7,500 years ahead of what we might even consider possible. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Oh, man. The things that, how can I say, my dad was high-ranking military
Yes, I'm
guy,
so
and
sorry too about your dad.
yes, he passed earlier this year, and, so he always told me, "If the government ever shows you any new technology, any new planes or whatever like that," he's like, "It's at minimum, and I mean minimum, 20 years old." He's
Yeah.
like, "We are so much more advanced than they will ever
Hmm.
tell you." And, it's like, wow, why do that? Oh, they'll say how is this, like the threat of UFOs, the presence of UFOs? Well, it's a matter of national security. Well, it landed in my backyard, not yours. How's that national security, dude?
Yeah.
When I have hundreds of friends across the world who've told me they've seen the same thing. Oh, but national security. No, it's not. It's a hoarding of information, and they don't
Yes.
care that you got stressed, depressed, and kicked out of your groups because you're talking about this thing happening to you. They did not care. They did
Hmm.
not care. They don't care you got abducted, you got raped, you got abused, and experimented on. They do not care.
Mm-mm.
They wanted to hoard that information. And it was also, of course they knew. Of course these beings met with people in power. It's not just people who work as a therapist that saw aliens. Government people did too. They had
Mhm.
conversations. And they're like, you know what? I'll work with you. In fact, I'll trade you 10 people you can abduct for that cool little handy
Yes.
keypad.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you 10, I'll raise you 20. Oh, here's
Mm-hmm.
20,000. Of course, they negotiated with their welfare. They do not care. They don't care. This place, and something I reminded a friend recently, I was like, think about where we're at in this time and space and all. Supposedly, this is the devil's realm. This is their playground. People
Mm-hmm.
who are rotten get things really easy. They all of a sudden, "Oh, you got a TV show, you got this. Oh my gosh, that's going so smooth for you." And you just stepped into the field, what, 6 months ago? That's amazing. How? And it's like, because this is
Mm-hmm.
their world. People who are working for the positive, it's a lot harder. It's like I'm 20 years in, I don't have a TV show, but all my work is out there because other people did it. You know what I'm saying? It's like that when you are aiming for good because this is not your realm. This is not it.
I
You have
still
to
think
work
it's going to
the
turn around
system.
and bite him in the ass, Heidi, eventually. I'm sorry, but I do. What you put out there, it takes a hell of a lot longer. It
It does.
does, but it comes
Mhm.
back to bite them in the butt because when you make deals like that, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you're trading something for that deal because there's
But
a big price.
Well, that's just an example, but it's like
Hmm.
truly when you're down in the trenches, you're helping individuals one on one. It doesn't it's like crime pays too in this country. You could rip off $6 million from old people. You'll get 6 months in prison and with promise to pay it back. But if you smoked a joint
Not in this
somewhere,
lifetime.
if they smoked a joint somewhere, there's people in prison for 20 years.
Yeah.
This is backwards. What is this? Just recently, though, thank God Biden is forgiving a lot of people who had those minor offenses who are sitting in prison for 20 years. It's crazy. But you made all these people go homeless. How many elderly people did you rip off? I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, they're playing to the major horrible people on this plane, and the time is coming. Talk about end times, time of change. It's coming, and things do need to be wiped clean. And trust me, the
Hmm.
powers that be know this. They've been preparing for it, and they got their escape plans. They do.
Hmm.
They've been in outer
Hmm.
space, of course. They've got a lot of things going on.
Hmm.
Look into some of the stories of people who volunteered. They're
Hmm.
talking. They really are. It's not deathbed confessions either. They just don't
Mm-mm.
give a crap anymore because they were left hanging. So super soldiers, they're called. Super
Oh,
soldiers.
I've seen some of those. Yes.
Super soldiers, and they're from Canada too. They're from the United States. They're from other places, and they're just like, you thought you saw a craft, and all of a sudden, gee, your hair is really long. You're there, and you feel like you got PTSD, and you get flashes of having been on other planets, and nobody's noticed that you've been gone. It's like they grab you out of your time and space, and they put you back, and they call it like 20 years in, 20 years
I've
back.
heard that. Yeah.
20
Hmm.
years in, 20 years back, and people are like, I was on Mars. I was over here, and it's like you look ridiculous and crazy talking about that, but they're
Here's
abusing things.
some medication. Yeah, here's it. Because that's where I was going to go with
Yeah.
this. This is usually what
Yeah.
happens when you don't
Mhm.
have someone like yourself to talk to about this, or because I
Yeah.
think knowledge is empowering and to be able to
Yeah.
know how to empower yourself
Yeah.
against these type of things, because
Mhm.
I get where I was going with that before was you can't talk about this because if you do, or like you said, you're being raped by something you can't see, you can't
Yeah.
prove. I
Yep.
guarantee you, I have seen so many people that have been brave
Mhm.
enough to share their stories
Yeah.
that they are on so many antipsychotic meds. It's not even funny. And it's still not
Mm.
stopping what's happening yet. Here's some more pills,
Yeah,
right?
but your natural products that God created here, I am not a person that does any drugs or marijuana or anything like
Hmm.
that, but that's a natural product on the planet, and
Hmm.
ayahuasca and different stuff, and it's,
Hmm.
"Oh, that's illegal." But take this mixture that we, boiled up the bottom of our shoes and scraped off, and now we're gonna hand it to you.
Hmm.
It's not natural, and it's like, why are you trying to make people forget? And again, I have to give it to these people that control the masses. They're hoarding the information. They're trying to downplay and keep you in this world of confusion. But
Mm-hmm.
people, you got to, and it's such a really personal battle, even with that. And how can we, as a whole, is get yourself right, and
Mm-hmm.
then meet with others. And it's like it's prayer, it's meditation, it's focus, it's cleansing, it's knowing that oh gosh, something is moving in my room. It's knowing that you can. I know. I was like, "What was that?" It's knowing that and owning it and praying. God, God is real. You call on Jesus. Rare, He's so real. I stutter in my mind on how best to express it. But you really can't go wrong. What do you have to lose? And you know what's really dismaying to me too? Like, if there's a joke to be made about a religion, about a certain representation of a religion, is Jesus. He's in the cartoons. He's the joke. Punchline of any joke. It's like I would never do that to somebody else. What they believe to be true, but Jesus is the punchline, and he's also the biggest force that will help you in your situations. And it's like, again, I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm being realistic. I'm the person that's talking of having trademarked the devil in the world today, and people being beat down by that thing, and millions are reporting them. Guess what? The sightings of Jesus are going through the roof. He's popping
Mm-hmm.
up all over the place too, to people that believe in different faiths. I've had Muslim and Jewish friends see him and recognize him for who he was without him
Mm-hmm.
saying anything. So he speaks because you recognize that force. And so this recognition and him cutting through this negative layer that's covering this planet right now, the time for the positive flow of him and what he stands for in God, it's coming. Time of change, not an end all, but a time of change. We call it a lot of things, but I like to think of, a new beginning. And how else do you wipe
Mm-hmm.
out all of these greedy hoarders of information who have been beating us down? So, it's the battle of all battles, and it's already started.
Well,
It
I
started.
believe it has too.
Mhm.
And, I also believe too that this isn't the first iteration of man on this planet. It seems like,
Sure isn't.
and what we can say is when you can't learn from your past mistakes and history keeps being changed or the truth not put out there, you're destined to keep repeating the same, mistakes over and over. And if you start really doing some deep dives, not you, I mean the global
Yes.
you, and
Yeah.
looking, I think you'll see, if you're willing to have an open mind, that this isn't the first time, our first kick at the can here, and we keep,
No.
we got to wake up eventually, and
Yeah.
I'm hope this time around we get it right, like enough of us wake up, like you said, and have the new beginning.
Yeah. Look
Mm-hmm.
look at look at the hoarding once again of information of ancient sites. The
Mm-hmm.
blocking of information. People that have bought land over the sunken Atlantis off the coast of Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing? Why are they doing that? Why did these people, rich people have bought subs and that are going around, submarines that could go and look at the land that they can purchase? What are they doing? Come on now. The information, yes, there's stuff that has been recovered from ancient sites that Smithsonian Institute won't show you. Other institutes won't show you. I remember being a kid watching on the news, and a giant skeleton was found, and they think
You're
it's a
reading my mind, girl. I
they
was
think
thinking
it's a
about giants.
Viking. They think it's a Viking, but he's like 10 feet tall. I
Mm-hmm.
remember going, "Wow, that's cool. Where's that body now? It's gone." I mean,
Always.
oh my gosh. This is like before people could make stuff up. This is just the regular, news. Whoa, they found a 10-foot tall Viking. Well, shoot. We have evidence of our beginnings having started and been destroyed, starting and been destroyed because we keep messing up. We've
Mm-hmm.
got we've got another start to come, and we all feel something's going on.
Yeah, we
And
do.
we just pray that it goes right, and you could do your part by getting right, being prepared. There's threats. I mean, Biden just said, "Oh, we're gonna have a big Armageddon, apocalyptic nuclear threat now." And then they're trying to poo-poo it the next day to say, "Oh, we don't know where he got that from." But then they bought $290 million, which is a drop in the can, of anti-radiation medication. The next
Mm,
day, oh, that's a coincidence? So they know there's a big threat going on. They know that there's things changing and mixing it up, and, all we could do is play our part because we can't control the idiocy that's gone on for so long here, but
mm-mm,
we can get ourselves right and pull together because we did make up the source at one point. We are connected. It hurts me physically if I see somebody hurt, even if I'm watching a commercial and I'll be walking through the room and I unexpectedly see somebody hit the floor with their knees. My knees will
oh,
hurt.
I
I'll jump
know.
down and buckle over. It hurts. So we are each other's keeper. We are. We should be. And if I could feel the pain, others must too, and know that we are one. I mean, we have to do better. That's what we can do. We
Well,
could get
part
angry,
of,
but
oh, go ahead, hon.
we could be angry, but we got to get active.
Well, that's true, but I was going to say too, and I mean, I'm a work in progress myself every day still, and probably will be till the day I transition back home, as I call it. But
Yeah.
I think some of the things we realize, like I believe, we're all here for a reason. We
Yes.
just don't all know what that is.
Right.
But for example, say somebody decided that one of the things they might want to work on, and this isn't the reason why you're here, but say patience.
Mhm.
Well, chances are that person is not going to be put in a Zen mood, Buddhist monkery, if you will. They're
Yeah.
going to be around people that are constantly pushing their buttons, constantly doing whatever. And it was really interesting because I got this analogy a while ago that, when you go back home and you look
Mhm.
back, it's like it was just a big play, right? Like you can see all the players and who's here, who's made the agreements to help you.
Yeah.
Sometimes the people that we really don't like we really dislike, those are the ones that were here that made the biggest sacrifice to kind of help you, if you will. You know what I'm saying? So when we are all one, and if we can just look at it like that we're here to help each other in certain ways, and
Yeah.
it doesn't always mean they're going to be all lovey-dovey and what have you. What I'm saying is we are really all part of each other. We got to
Yes.
embrace it all and love it all.
Yes, and there's sometimes, you get this horrible person in your life that
Hmm.
pushes you to, "Oh, you lost your lease in your apartment. Now you gotta move across town," and you're really irritated, and they just keep causing you trouble to keep moving until you get to the place you're supposed to be. And
Hmm.
then you're, like, almost grateful, "Wow, thank God that place, that they, gave me so many troubles." And,
Hmm.
people play different roles in this world, and I always say you don't know what you say, the seed you plant, that might help spark a whole, revolution of things. And
Hmm.
we build each other up in this life and, love each other, love each other from a distance or whatever. But, we can contribute, we can build up, we can be okay with this transition. People are so fearful of, oh gosh, I'm so horrible. I don't know what I'm going to do if I cross over right now. It's like, up until the last minute, Jesus help me, you're gonna be okay. Even people that are atheists, I've heard go to the other side, and they're in this dark, hell-like place, and
Hmm.
in the midst of it, and they feel like they've been there forever, and they say, "Jesus, help." Guess what?
Hmm.
He comes and gets them. You've studied these things for 40 years. It's like,
Uh-huh.
it's amazing. It's
Hmm.
amazing, and, I just, never doubt. I don't have any doubts, and I hope that people realize it's okay to have, God made us to be imperfect and to question things and mess up and get back up, mess up, get back up. He knew what he was getting into when he made us, so don't be so
Hmm.
hard on yourself. We can be okay as long as we keep aiming for the right stuff?
And like things like, random acts of kindness, and say people that we
Yes.
really don't love or care about, or they just really seem like really awful people. You know what?
Yeah.
I sometimes I know it helps myself I always first of all try to remember it's not my job to judge. And the
Mhm.
other thing is that's somebody's child, or that's somebody's parent, or somebody's brother
Yeah.
or sister, or whomever it may be. You know what? That if we can remember that they're loved by someone, we just as much as we love our loved ones, they're loved
Yeah.
by their loved ones. They may not be acting very lovable in the moment, but because it's so hard, I
Yeah.
think, for us to realize we really are part of each
Yeah.
other, right? Because we'll see people saying, well, we don't want to be like them. Well, we
Right, right.
are part of them.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I
Mhm.
even heard, having been, in Milwaukee for, a long time growing up, Jeffrey Dahmer's on the news, right? His
Yes.
parents said he was a great son, you
Yeah.
know? And oddly, there's a family connection to, my family with that whole situation, the guy who ended up killing Dahmer, you know?
Hmm.
And it's like, it's this weird world, but it's like even the guy who killed Dahmer, his mother says, "It's a great son," and you think you might have your judgments, but, you don't have the whole picture of anybody,
That's right.
So, you know?
We are almost out of time. I can talk to you for
Yeah,
hours. Like, I really mean this. We're going to get Halloween out of the way, and then
same.
I want to have you on. We'll do a whole show on
Jesus,
angels and
angels.
Jesus, and I would love
I
to
would
do that.
love
How
it.
about it?
I would love it. I mean, that's my favorite topic, and I always I sprinkle some Jesus on all my stuff, but,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean,
It
it's
never
just,
hurts.
it never hurts, and, if you don't mind, I'd love to let people know too, if they haven't had an experience of anything out of the ordinary from angels to aliens, shadow people to Hat Man, share your stories, go to HeidiHollis.com or shadowfolks.com and tell me your stories. I mean, I'm just, it would the goal is to get people to hear these stories, to
Hmm.
grow, to see the patterns, and try to build each other up and also solve and assist wherever we can. But I'm no guru. I'm not a psychic.
Well, I don't know about
It's like
that, girl. You know, I've said that to you before. You're pretty darn intuitive in the experiences you've had.
so, something is, I've gotten more answers more recently, and that's about why that is. And I've shared some with you, and at some point in the future, I'll talk more on that. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's been an interesting life, I think we're all magical, I really do. I think that we're all magical. We're all created by the same God and part of the same source as well. So
Hmm.
so much ground to cover in this world. And girl, I love what you've been doing with your show and all your
Well,
work
thank
and stuff.
you.
And you're always so positive and look how get your stuff all cutesied up and it's like
Girl,
it's
this was
so
after
nice.
cooking, and you know what? Okay, this is very quickly for people that believe they're never going to get something done. You tell
Uh-huh.
yourself you're never going to get something done, you won't get anything done. Because today I woke up and I said, "Yep, we're going to get that dinner cooked. We're doing a full 5 course
Unbelievable.
meal here." And my eldest is living back in town with the love of his life. There's partner. They just bought their first house, so he
Nice.
messages me, "How's the turkey coming?" "It's coming great. I will message you when it's pulled out, and I have a show to do at 6. So,
Wow.
well, do you want us just to eat and run?" I said, "You can do whatever you want." So they got here, they knew when my show was, and then I said, "Let's face it, guys. I'm going to be honest, after you eat a big turkey dinner, I used to hate when I'd have to go to my mom's house and have idle chit chat when all you want to do is lay down and just go." And they go, "Yeah, you're right. You're right." So they took leftovers home, and
Wow.
you can set your mind to it. I love what you're doing. But before I tell people where to find me and everything, where can they find your podcast, what night, and where can they find you, your books, everything, Heidi?
Yes. Well, my show is called Dark Becomes Light. It's on the Coast to Coast AM podcast
Love it.
network. So if they go to iHeartRadio and type in Coast to Coast AM, it'll come up. Or Dark Becomes Light, or my name. Well, hold it. No, don't type my name because a whole bunch of shows come up of
Okay.
other shows I've been a guest on. So Dark Becomes Light. And
Hmm.
they could go to theoutlanderscomic.com if they want a paranormal comic to check it out.
Check it
And
out. It's awesome.
HeidiHollis.com, shadowfolks.com, and at one Heidi, that's Heidi Hollis. That's on all my social media from Instagram to Facebook, Twitter. Just put a one in front of Heidi Hollis, and I will respond. It's like I'm there. And
She has.
until something extraordinary happens, people are like, "Oh, if you ever did get a show that's a TV or something, you won't be able to handle all the influx." I'm like, I'm on coast and I'm handling the influx. I'm doing what I can, because that's what it's all about,
And
and
she will.
yeah, isn't it wild, Lorilei? Who would
Hmm.
think I'd be sitting here saying, I'm a host on Coast to Coast AM.
I was just celebrating the first day I saw that. You know, I was. I
I
was
know
like,
you were.
and I still share it everywhere because I'm so proud of you and so happy
Oh,
for
God.
you. You
Thank
keep
you.
doing what you're doing, and regardless of
Appreciate
who wants to claim a right to what your hard work has done and what you're sharing, I think you're doing it for the right reasons. I think you're
it.
helping people. And again, and I'm not saying this as a cliche, I truly believe truth always rises to the surface, and people will realize they see through the BS. Whether you think people think they can feel something or not, you can feel when
Yeah.
somebody's really doing it for the right reasons.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it, yep, I don't know. I kind of, well, I won't say it on here. I'll tell you afterwards, maybe, but about shows and stuff. I just have a feeling about something.
Oh,
Anyways, I
do
want to
you?
remind you guys that I will be back here next Monday, same time, same space. I'm trying to remember who I have on. I have a guest. I know that.
Yeah.
So I'll be back here. Guys, I want to give it, sorry, Heidi and I get talking and get
Thank
so
you. Thank you.
interested. We had just in case here. I just want to let you guys know there was something going on with StreamYard. Somebody said they couldn't see the link or something. So I'm not quite sure what that meant. But Zachman was here. All of you that are listening, please share this with your friends, and as well, UPRN. People find something for everybody here. We've got a lot of different hosts. Also, I've got 2 groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and then the Angel Rocker Tribe for more esoteric. Some of the things we've talked about tonight on there. Power of positive thinking, how to develop your own inner gifts. So I'd love to have you join me in both the groups. And also, if you want to get a hold of me, facebook.com/the Angel Rock. Maybe you want to book a reading, maybe some healing work. I also do mentoring, or you got a show idea or a guest. I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I will see you next Monday, same time, same space. Heidi,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much.
Thank
Love
you,
having you here.
girlfriend. Oh,
Love
I love chatting with you. You know
me.
that.
Me
Thank
too. I could go all night. She will be back. I
you.
promise. I promise.
Yes.
Meanwhile, tune into her show on Coast to Coast AM. And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. And I send you all so much love and light. Take care. We'll see you next Monday.
Goodbye.